The moment it happened, everyone was watching. Not because it was dramatic at first, not because there was shouting or chaos, but because silence fell in a way that made people uncomfortable. The kind of silence where one wrong reaction could change everything. In that moment, the life of a man named Edrin Hale split into two possible futures. And the only thing standing between failure and victory was his ability to control his emotions. Edrin didn't always know this power. In fact, for most of his life, his emotions controlled him. He was the kind of man people described as intense, passionate, driven, but quick to react. If someone challenged him, his voice rose. If things didn't go his way, frustration showed on his face. He believed emotion was strength, that reacting fast meant living honestly. And for years, that belief cost him more than he realized. It cost him respect at work. It cost him trust in relationships. It cost him opportunities that quietly slipped away while he was busy defending his pride. The day everything changed didn't start like a turning point. It started like any ordinary morning. Edrin woke before sunrise, his mind already racing through problems he couldn't solve and conversations he wished he could redo. He dressed quickly, skipped breakfast, and left with that familiar tightness in his chest, the one he told himself was motivation. At work, tension was already in the air. A major decision was being made, one that could define his future. He had prepared, he had worked harder than anyone else, and deep down he believed he deserved to win. But when the meeting began, something unexpected happened. Another colleague spoke first. And then another. And when it was finally Edrin's turn, his idea was questioned publicly. Not attacked, questioned, but to Edrin, it felt like disrespect. His heart rate spiked. His jaw tightened. His thoughts raced ahead of his words, building sharp replies meant to prove he was right and everyone else was wrong. He felt the familiar urge rise. The urge to interrupt, to dominate the moment, to let emotion take the wheel. This was the first critical moment, the moment where most lives quietly derail. And then he remembered something an old mentor once said to him, words he had dismissed at the time. Every situation has two battles. The one outside of you, and the one inside of you. You only lose when you lose the second one first. For the first time in his life, Edrin paused. Not outwardly. No one noticed anything different. But inside, instead of reacting, he observed. He noticed his anger as if it belonged to someone else. He noticed how his body wanted to move, how his voice wanted to rise. And instead of feeding it, he let it sit. It was uncomfortable. It felt like holding fire in his chest. But he stayed silent. That silence confused the room. People leaned in. And when he finally spoke, his voice was calm, measured, clear. He addressed the questions without emotion, without ego, without the need to win the argument. He focused only on the outcome. By the end of the meeting, something had shifted. The same people who questioned him now listened differently. Not because he was louder, but because he was composed. That day, Edrin didn't just save an opportunity. He discovered a weapon he didn't know he had. Control. But control didn't come overnight. Winning one situation doesn't mean you've mastered yourself. Life tested him again and again, each time in more personal ways. At home, old patterns resurfaced. A disagreement turned sharp. Words rose to the edge of his tongue. Words he knew could wound deeply and permanently. In the past, he would have released them without hesitation, believing honesty justified harm. This time, he asked himself a different question. Do I want to be right? Or do I want peace? He chose silence again, not weakness. Strategic silence. He listened instead of preparing his defense. He felt the emotion fully. But he didn't let it decide his behavior, and something remarkable happened. The situation softened. Edrin realized that emotional control wasn't about suppressing feelings. It was about delaying action until wisdom caught up with emotion. Over time, he started practicing this intentionally. When anger rose, he slowed his breathing. When fear appeared, he asked what it was trying to protect. When pride demanded reaction, He reminded himself that ego is loud, but strength is quiet. He began to understand that emotions are signals, not commands. The world didn't become easier. People still challenged him, situations still felt unfair, but now, Edrin moved through them differently. Where others reacted, he responded. Where others escalated, he de-escalated. Where others lost control, he gained influence. And influence, he learned, is how you truly win situations. The biggest test came months later. A public confrontation, accusations, pressure, eyes watching, waiting for him to crack. The old Edrin would have exploded, defended himself aggressively, burned bridges just to feel momentarily powerful. This time, he stood still, he listened, he waited, he spoke only when necessary. His calm unsettled those who wanted chaos. His composure exposed the weakness of emotional manipulation. In the end, the truth surfaced on its own, without him forcing it. That day, Edrin didn't just protect his reputation. He earned something far more valuable: respect. Not the kind demanded through dominance, but the kind given freely to those who master themselves. And this is the lesson his life teaches. You don't win every situation by overpowering others. You win by mastering your inner world. The person who controls their emotions controls the room. The person who controls the room controls the outcome. And the person who controls the outcome controls their destiny. Every day, you will be tested. Someone will provoke you. Something will frustrate you. Life will challenge your patience, your pride, your ego. When that moment comes, remember this: pause, breathe, choose response over reaction. Because the strongest people are not those who feel nothing. They are the ones who feel deeply, yet act wisely. Control your emotions, and you won't just survive situations, you'll win them.